for it. Action. All right. Okay. Put this in my hand before I can't find it for later. All right. Ms. Mitchell, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Awesome.
Excellent, excellent. All right, I just want to start off this meeting by saying thank you for stepping up, and Ms. Hobbing was out and you were the next man, woman up, as they say, right? And you filled in awesomely. I really appreciate it. And you know, leading a weekly data meeting is not an easy task. So the fact that you brought your team together, they were ready with their nose and shows, and they brought student work, and you guys had this really quality conversation about the standard MD 4. Says a lot about where you're heading and how you're doing, and I really appreciate it. So good job.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. So the fact that we are always like strapped with time, right? 30 minutes for like a weekly data meeting is just it's tough. So I think the plan for having teachers equipped coming to the meeting with their nose and shows ready to go definitely saves time. Do you feel that way too?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's more effective, it's more efficient, and you did great.
Thank you.
It was a good start. Was that your first weekly data meeting that you had to lead by yourself? Okay. Good deal. That's what I thought. So that was an awesome start for you. Okay. So today I want to narrow the focus. Thinking about your data meeting yesterday. Like a really good strength about what you did yesterday was that you can see the structure of the meeting. So if I'm thinking about a weekly data meeting, which is here's an example right in front of you. Your preparation, see it, name it, do it, and then getting into reteaching. The skeleton, the structure, the foundation was there. So that's a really good start, okay? So, but what we need to do now is to take what we started with and just keep, progressing. It's like the evolution of a weekly data meeting, especially with only about 30 minutes to work with. So you really have to get tricky with these things. So, so today I want to narrow the focus in the see it portion. Okay. So when you look at a see it portion of a weekly data meeting, what do you think about when you're preparing for a meeting like this? Like what things really pop out for you?
The important things that we need to narrow in on, like what is our purpose for that meeting,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can save time and just go straight to it.
Good. Okay. So think about the importance of really breaking down that standard,
Okay.
right? The standard and the fact that you guys were sitting at Ghost. Just kidding. You guys were sitting at a table, and you brought everyone brought their nose and shows, right? They're talking about the standard, which is
MD4.
right, measure to determine how much longer one object is than another, expressing the length difference in terms of standard length unit. So breaking that down, having that conversation. How do you think the conversation and like the whole action of that part went yesterday?
I think it went good. We talked about what the kids needed to know in order to master that standard. So we tried to break it down, as much as we could to make sure that we're hitting all the points.
Good.
When they're going back to the reteach.
Awesome. Good. So the way that you did that yesterday was everyone brings their nose right in their shows, and you kind of just sat together at the table and started like just listing them out, right? Okay. So I want to show you just a timestamp from yesterday's meeting, really quick. All right, I'm gonna go all the way to 24 minutes. So this whole meeting lasted about 29 minutes. All right, so we're at the end of the meeting. All right, I'm going to 24:55. All right, I'm going a little bit before it, but watch what Miss Casey says, okay?
Setting up equation, but I just specified setting up equation for students mastered for my
Okay, so what did you get from that short clip right there?
That she missed the gaps in her curriculum.
Right.
With what she needed to go back and hit.
Okay, so if we're at 25 minutes,
Mhm.
right, and Ms. Casey is asking about the gaps, what does that kind of pop in your brain right now? What happens?
That she didn't get it when we were going over the gaps in the beginning of in the middle of the meeting when we were hitting the gaps for her class, and she probably didn't really think about it till after we said a couple of things, and she was like, well, I don't know if my class did that, so she probably, went back and thought about it after that point.
Right. So knowing that now, so thinking about Ms. Casey at 25 minutes into the meeting, if you could go back right now, like where do you think you would have to go to fix that gap of her not knowing what the clear misconception is for a reteach?
So for when I have my coaching meeting with her, I would have her to bring her tests so that we can sit down and analyze it together so that she can see the gaps and what we're looking for when we do the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
So like in misconceptions, like if several kids are missing the same problem, which I know in her class it was number 6, then we need to see, well, how did you teach this? What common mistake are they all making, and then how can we go back and reteach it?
Good. Okay, so but think about just the meeting itself.
Okay.
So instead of like going like from there to what could happen next, right, for an action step, think about like, all right, if you had to do this meeting over again, how would you make sure that she knew what that gap was before you got into like say the next part of the meeting? Like say, where would you have to go back to fix that?
So we would go back to when we were talking about the gaps in the meeting, and then I would have her to probably look at her data. They didn't bring their data with them.
Okay.
All the tests, they just bought one. So maybe she needed to bring all of it, or to even think about when she was grading, what was what numbers stuck out, or maybe even in the preparation for them to bring it, have them to write down the common misconceptions on each test, like
right.
the question number, how many kids missed it, so that we can maybe get a better view. And within that just small time frame, probably taking her back and having her to go back to her first block. What did you notice for your first block? What did you notice for your second block?
Mm-hmm.
And then going in more depth with her on that.
Good. And even more depth, not just with her, but as the group itself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if you're all in this data meeting together, you want to make sure that everyone is leaving with the same understanding, right? So this all stems from right here. Boom, boom, all right? Listing the no's and the shows, okay? So I want to show you one more video. If I can get there pretty quickly. Okay, this is going to be a mishobbing of one of her weekly data meetings a few weeks ago. All right, I'm going to go right to... Oh, actually, I want you to watch the first 2 minutes, and there's going to be one more part I want you to watch. All right, think about what she is doing and what she is saying within her meeting.
So, zoning in on OA3, and the particular lens I wanted you guys to look through was rounding and estimation. So what would they have to know based off just the unpacking? I don't even want to talk about Eureka yet. I want to talk about just the unpacking at OA3. What would they have to know? Absolutely. What else do they have to know?
Assess reasonableness.
Yeah, they need to understand what those words mean. Reasonableness. Assess. How to estimate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would say estimate.
Answer the word problem. But is that a no or a show? What do they need to know to do that? Cues. They have. Is that? Oh, they unpacking. Unpacking what they need to know.
Attention all staff. New employment and training will start
So is that?
now
Yes.
in the conference room. Again, new employment training will start.
Okay, so just looking at that for a minute right there. Think about what you did with your team yesterday and what she's doing right now. What are like just the most obvious things that she's actually doing? What are the actions she's doing?
Like she's actually writing it out on the board. We came in, it was already done.
Right.
Like, so they just me up there writing it out so they can re-see it. It's like we're going back over it and it's refreshing it in their mind.
Yeah. Right. And then going into what she's writing down now, like even what she just said, like she wrote a couple down, right? She wrote a couple of those down, and then somebody gave another suggestion,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how does she reply to that?
Is that a no or a show?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So just the fact of having that, even if they come there equipped with it, right? They're coming there like with their own no's and shows, it doesn't mean that all of their no's and their shows are accurate, right? Like you got to make that decision. You're leading that, so you're bringing your own, they're bringing their own, and then you're kind of having that sparring session. Right now she's going back and forth with them, saying, "All right, is that a no? Is that a no? Okay, yes, yes," and she's like basically saying, "Correct, correct," right, by writing it down. And the fact that she's saying, "Okay, wait a minute, is that a no? Is that a show?" is getting everybody to do what? Like, what are they doing
They're
now?
thinking about it and saying, well, is that really what they need to know in order to show it, or do I have to, if I'm showing this, is this something that they're doing? If it's an action, then they're showing it. Okay.
Right, exactly right. So, just having that conversation here is where it's like the whole meeting begins. You know, it's like this is like it's like the fruit of it right here. This is where you're getting everything, because what we want to get to here, where we ultimately want to go, is to make sure that the teacher leaves this meeting knowing a little bit more about content, right? Kind of developing those content experts, but also leading to what?
So the shows and then the misconceptions, and to help them become better in the content area, but then being able to, whenever they see it in the classroom, then they can actually stop it right there.
Yeah.
Because they already know before they get to that
Exactly.
point.
Like you want everyone just to leave that meeting being on the same page and understanding what is that highest leverage misconception going to be, right? So one more. This was a good part, I thought.
Now in the comments too.
8 minutes in. Okay.
What else is something that you feel like they've mastered? You told me you feel like they know vocab. What else have they mastered? Cubes. Do you feel like they know it or they show the mastery of it? When you say know it, they can tell you they circle key numbers, they need to underline it, they need to box. They tell you they know what it is, but show is I'm effectively using it. No. So they know it on this side, but they are still need some help effectively applying it. Right. So good. So cubes, but that they know what cubes is under mastery. They know it.
Yeah, they know it, but they're not executing it every time. They'll
Right.
be like,
So it's not
consistent.
No.
Okay. So watching that portion right there, what do they decide as a group?
What have they mastered? And she's putting a check by confirming, yes, they've mastered this. But and then she says, did they actually master it, or is it, consistent?
Right.
And then they were like, no, they didn't master that. So just getting them to visually see where they are, so that kind of helps you lead to the reteach, because
Absolutely.
then you can see where you need to go.
Right. They decided that it was cubes down here. I don't know if you can see it. It was actually written low. So she had cubes here. They decided that the no was mastered. They know cubes, but they're not showing it consistently. So if they're not consistent, they're not mastery. So what do we have now?
So now we need to go back and reteach that.
Right. So we have a gap. So we found a gap, and now we can put it on our misconception. We can make another page for misconceptions. We can put gap. And by the end of this meeting, what we want to do is to make sure that we understand, what the misconceptions are, and, and this could be something that you list like 5 things, right? So what, are you going to go back and reteach all 5 things like right away, or are you going to look at the highest leverage need?
Yeah, the most definitely the highest level.
Right, because it could become overwhelming, right? Good job, all right, doing awesome. Okay, so going from here, what do you think is the gap from what we're talking about here and from what you watched? So what do you think, I guess let's go into naming it, right? So what would be your action step?
Maybe using more visuals so that they can see where we are, and coming in and just kind of reiterating what they already said, giving them confirmation or taking them to the next level. So I don't know how to put that.
You're on point though. You
Right.
said use it, like use visuals. Let's be real specific. Use what?
We're going to use the know to show sheet that we come with, and then we're going to create a blank one, and then we're just going to add to it what they have, and then add more from what others may have said.
Awesome.
And then so they can see, like Ms. Harvey did, on which ones we need to focus on, and that'll get us to our highest leverage that we need to reteach.
Great. I mean, you can come with an exemplar done. Like, it doesn't have to be on a chart. Like, you can have it done here, and then when you're charting it, like you can just be like, all right, here, and then where exactly that, like yesterday, you actually did a really good job with. They would give you a no or a show, and then when you would keep asking them. So is there another no and show? Is there anything else? Like you were trying to say, yes, there are more, right? But then when they wouldn't give you an answer, what did you do?
I would just give it to
You
them.
would give it to them because eventually you have to say, no, we know what else we need. Let's write this down. Let's write that down. Okay? So come with an exemplar. No shows ready to go, and then do it together. But this is your anchor. This is what starts the whole thing. Because when you get all the way to the part where you are doing it, and you name the misconception, but then you have to figure out what kind of reteach you're doing. Are you doing modeling? Are you doing guided discourse? Like once you get to that process, if this isn't strong here, you know that's not going to be strong. So you might not be using the highest leverage gap.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's write this down. Okay, your action step is, ready? Use the chart to make sure that the gap is fully named in the unpacked standard for teachers to identify. I'm going to read it again. Use the chart to make sure that the gap is fully named in the unpacked standard for teachers to identify.
All right, so use the chart to make sure that the gap is fully named in the unpacked standards for teachers to identify.
Absolutely. How's that feel?
Cool beans.
Okay. So, if you read that, what kind of steps would it take for you to be prepared to make sure you show up to a meeting to hit that action step to close that gap for you?
Have the standard prepared. Make sure that we have done the pre-work like we did, having the no's and shows already done.
Right.
Me creating an exemplar of what I want them to show me
That's key.
when they come in, and then just going in and making sure that they pick out the highest leverage. And I'm gonna have to guide them to that if they're not going there in the direction I need them to go.
Right. And look at the last part you wrote. For teachers to identify. You want to lead them there, right? You want that's the whole point. Like you're doing that sparring session. Like what are the no's? What are the shows? What have we mastered? What have we not mastered? Oh, we haven't mastered this? All right, let's circle this. Let's make a list here. Let's put up our misconceptions. Which one of these do you think, if we hit this one, this most highest leverage need, if we hit this and we reteach this, will this possibly take care of some of those other things? It's like that waterfall effect. And it possibly will, but then it possibly won't too. So you got to really think about and push and dig in and come to that consensus together as a team. But of course you're leading. But you want the teachers to take that ownership too. Good job. That's awesome. All right, you ready to practice?
Yes.
All right. So let's. I'm up here. I'm you for a minute here. You look a lot nicer than me. That's okay. All right. So let's say we got past all the no's and shows.
Okay.
Okay. We just did that part. We went back and forth. I'm ready with my exemplar here, and I know. Okay. So we need to know. Who's that? Oh, sorry. We need to know vocabulary. We need to know the standard forms of measurement. Right. We need to know to line it up, to leave no spaces. We have all these things. We have the shows here. Now, I'm getting to the point now where I know I don't have to add anything else. I feel really good about this list. Now, what do I got to do next? I have to make sure that, as a team, that these teachers understand which one of these things that we have to get to a reteach. Which are the misconceptions right now? So, right now, you're the expert, you're the teacher. Let's just say, is vocabulary strong? Do they know their vocabulary? Do they know what difference is?
They know the difference is shorter and longer.
Okay, so these are mastered?
Those are
The
mastered.
understanding is there? Check. Good. All right. Standard forms of measurement. Do they understand the differences and
They do not.
between each one?
It's not consistent.
Okay. So we know here, I'm just going to put a circle. Okay. Do they know what a centimeter is?
They know they use the pinky, but it's not consistent.
Not consistent. All right. Boom. Okay. So if this isn't consistent, these things are not yet. How about lining it up?
They know how to line it up.
Check. Leaving no space.
They know not to leave any spaces.
Should be equal. Does this seem like a little bit of a concern?
Yeah.
Equal?
Yeah, the equal part.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So that means that as well. What about when they're showing the evidence within their assessments or their classwork?
They are not accurately measuring two objects because they're trying to visually look at it and they're missing the numbers.
Okay. Are they accurately comparing them?
When given the numbers, yeah, they can accurately compare them.
Okay. When given the numbers.
Mhm.
So do we need to modify the way that's written
Yeah.
or add something to it? Okay. So what should we add to it?
Accurately comparing them when giving measurement.
Okay. So
So
this part was good.
Mhm.
Or check here. Okay. So here though,
Yeah, they have to measure themselves and then tell if it's short or longer. No, they're not.
you think that's strong?
No, they haven't mastered that yet.
Okay. On the
Next.
circle here.
Very important.
Accurately setting up a subtraction problem to find out the difference in the two objects.
They can set up the problem.
They can set it up.
Mhm.
So this is good. Okay. Are they finding the difference in the
Yes,
two?
they know how to subtract it. They know the difference in subtracting.
All right. So seeing what our gaps are, literally these holes. What do you think? Which one of these would be the highest leverage?
And see right there, the second one, it says know what a centimeter is. They can subtract to find the difference. That goes back to when they're given it. But if they have to find it themselves, that's the problem they have.
Okay.
The steps to find the difference, now that's where that one needs to
Okay. So if we
tackle that.
can tackle this,
Hmm.
will that start hitting
Yes.
some of the other problems?
Because there's some of the steps to,
Okay.
when some of the steps to finding the difference is going back and using those strategies, like making sure you have no spaces lining up. Are they equal? So those are some of the things that they'll cover in there. They'll know the standard forms of measurement because it's consistently being used.
Okay. So now we gotta go from here. Here's the misconception. The steps to find the difference. Okay. So from here,
Hmm.
what's gonna be the what?
So the things that we would need to do would be going back and finding how can we find the steps to take to get there. So first they would need to be able to accurately set up the equation, which is one of the things they can do.
Okay, so boom, boom, boom. We start listening and we'll stop there. Great job. Okay? So now, because this is moving into,
Okay,
going into the reteach, right? So we'll stop here because we want to focus in just today of your action step of using the chart, right? So now, your turn. I'll give you a new color. How about that?
okay.
If I can find my markers. Here, just use the blue. That's it.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Feel
All right.
good?
Sure. All right.
Okay. So yeah, start at the same spot. Like we already listed the nose and shows.
All right, so we've listed our nose and our shows. Now we need to go through and see what they have actually mastered. What is it that we need to find as the highest leverage? Let's talk about the vocabulary. Do you think they've mastered the vocabulary? Do they know what the difference is?
Yes, difference, shorter, longer, measure. They have definitely proven that they understand those words.
Okay, great. All right, what about standard forms using the centimeters? Know the difference between a centimeter and a meter.
They're having a hard time with the differences,
Okay.
with those, and understanding, identifying what a centimeter is, a meter, and inches are. So
Okay, so
still,
we're gonna circle that one.
right.
All right, knowing what a centimeter is, can they actually measure without having a ruler and knowing something that's equivalent to a centimeter?
Well, they can subtract to find the difference.
Okay.
That's working. Is everyone? I don't know if everyone is understanding the size of the pinky yet,
Okay.
but they're not all understanding the steps to finding the difference. The steps is definitely a gap right now.
Okay. What about lining it up?
They can line it up.
All right, leaving spaces.
Yep, they agree with
Okay.
that.
And then should they be equal? Understanding, are these lines the same?
They're having a hard time with that as well.
Okay.
That's definitely a gap.
All right, and then what about steps on how to actually read a measuring tool?
They're having. There's definitely gaps within that as well.
Okay. All right.
It's inconsistent.
All right, so now going over to the shows. what they need to be able to do to prove that they understand. Can they accurately measure two objects?
It's not accurate. The evidence on their work is not accurate yet.
Okay. And then accurately comparing the objects, if they're shorter to larger.
When you give them the measurement, they can do it.
Okay. And then, but when they have to find it themselves, they're unable to.
Exactly. Still again.
All right. Accurately setting up a subtraction problem. Are they able to do that?
They can set it up.
All right. And then to find out the difference, are they able to subtract that?
They understand the difference. Yes.
All right. So now looking at what we have circled here, the steps to find the difference, steps on how to accurately read a measuring tool, and then we have accurately measuring two objects, along with them comparing two objects when they have to find their own measurements. What do you think is the highest leverage? What is going to get us the biggest bang for our buck? And then also maybe tackle some of the little ones.
Well, I know that they have to show that the object is accurate, comparing the objects.
Yes.
I know that's really important, and they're having a really hard time with that. The question is that the highest leverage though?
Will that get us to the next level? Will that maybe even take care of accurately measuring two objects if they know how to compare them?
Well, they can't show unless they know it. So they're gonna have to know the steps to find the difference first.
So we need to start with
The steps.
the steps. So then we would start with the steps to find the difference.
Okay. How do you feel?
Good. It
Yeah.
makes sense now. It flows a little better.
All right. So the actual of getting up, like the action of doing this and having these conversations out loud.
It's kind of like teaching the kids.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
what it feels like.
Good job. Nailed it.
Practice.
All right. All right. Good work. Good work. Good work. Okay. All right.
So do I get to lead the next week's meeting?
That's a good question. I would actually like to see you. That's a follow up.
Okay.
So following up, I would like to actually see you do a weekly data meeting again. Let me talk to Hobbs,
Okay.
and even if you guys work together
Okay.
on one, where you could possibly lead with just this part,
Okay.
all the way up to the part where maybe Ms. Hobbin can take over in leading into the actual the naming it and the doing it with the reteach plan. All right. When do you think the next weekly data meeting is for second grade?
Probably gonna be next week because they had a test today.
Okay. All right. Do you have a date yet or not yet?
It's always on Monday afternoons.
Monday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's lock that in. Monday afternoon.
Monday at
Right
4.
there. All right. So Mitchell. Monday. What's the date on that?
Monday would be December, say, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. What?
Third, right?
I think it's the 3rd.
4 o'clock.
Yep, 4 o'clock.
Same as okay. Thank you very much,
Cool
Ms. Mitchell.
beans. That
You did
was
a great job.
Thank you, thank you.